Race has been the topic over the last couple of weeks, but if we're going to do this right, if we're going to have an honest discussion among people who care about the problems inside the black community, we have to be dealing with honest brokers. Unfortunately, a lot of people in the so-called civil rights community are frauds, outright hucksters. Two of the worst, Al Sharpton, Michael Eric Dyson. Their goal, demonize white people, especially conservatives like Bill O'Reilly, so they don't have to deal with the real problems that continue to plague the black community. Making an older, conservative white guy like O'Reilly a boogeyman is easy for these hustlers. Confronting the real problems, real threats inside the minority community, no. High murder rates? How about that? High dropout rates? Family breakdown? I bet you think I'm exaggerating. Well, listen to Michael Eric Dyson.
Why is it that when we say we want to have a conversation on race, you want to have a conversation on blackness? You don't want to have a conversation on race. You don't want to have a conversation on white privilege, unconscious bias. You don't want to talk about the collective world we've made as black, brown, red, yellow, and white people. You want to lecture black people. So, Mr. O'Reilly, I'd love to have that conversation about protecting yourself behind white picket fences and Fox News and having digital courage. Come in the streets where you went to Sylvia and you were surprised that black people don't throw bananas at each other or swing from trees.
Can you believe that? This is unbelievable on so many levels, but let me just start by saying this. He's making the charge, basically, that O'Reilly is portraying black people as animals, and of course, this never happened. This is not true. O'Reilly, in fact, in the whole episode at Sylvia's, which O'Reilly and I talked about on the radio, was going on about defeating racial stereotypes in this society. But that's not what Michael Eric Dyson wants to do here. He wants to hold up somehow that Bill O'Reilly is a racist and the target of the conversation, and therefore we should be about somehow going after Bill O'Reilly. Well, who does that help? Let's think about that for a second. If this is a real conversation about helping people, if you truly love people and want to help those in need, how does it help to go after conservatives, O'Reilly, white people, rich people? Let's go to the people who need help and give them help. But that's not what Michael Eric Dyson's doing. Oh, no. When you start talking about, well, are you doing anything to help the schools in the inner city? No. What about the carnage on black streets with kids shooting each other? No. What about, any of the issues attached to family breakdown, 70% of children born out of wedlock? What about that? Oh, no. So what we're doing here is a huge distraction. Yes, there's legitimate rage in the black community over the Zimmerman verdict. But the idea that we have to use the power that exists in this country to help people who are in need in the black community, that is an ongoing and longer story, and you can't pull away from that by making Bill O'Reilly into your target and somehow beating him up. That's craziness. Dana, when you see this kind of politicization of something, I apologize if I get emotional about it, but it is so important that we reach out to people in need and not simply play this game, the political game. So I'm talking to you here, someone who knows politics, who knows communication. What is going on? Why does Dyson do that?
Oh, first of all, can I congratulate you on what was maybe one of the best opens of the 5 ever, and let people know that he wasn't reading that. Juan said all of that from the heart, and it was impressive and refreshing in particular. I did think about earlier today how, isn't it amazing how 2 weeks after, is it 3 weeks now, after the Trayvon Martin trial ended, that this story, you haven't heard about Trayvon Martin or any other young black kid ever since. The only people you've heard talk about are Al Sharpton, Bill O'Reilly, this Dyson guy, and a few others. It's amazing how an Al Sharpton is able to turn the attention to himself. I don't know of any single plan that they've put forward. I admire Nancy Pelosi today. She decided to have one of the hearings or like a town hall thing to use this as an opportunity to then do something. I would ask you, Juan, what is the most important thing that we could do if we set aside the ridiculousness of that comment? If we do care about people, and I do, and people at this table do, what do you think is the most important thing that we could do to address the problem? What's the root cause?
For me, it's education. I grew up as a poor kid, and if it wasn't for education, Dana, I wouldn't be anywhere. So, in other words, I had a tiger mom, and a tiger mom who was a black tiger mom, who said, you're going to get good grades, you're going to stay in school, you're going to work, and not only that, you're going to achieve. It's not just hanging in there, you're going to achieve. So to me, if we are serious about this, we go about taking on the unions, going at school reform, going at charter school, going at vouchers. You know, that's why people say, well, you know, they provide a lot of jobs, but you know what? Unless you're educating kids, unless you love the kids, you're not doing anything. You're not helping anybody. You understand what I'm saying, or you think I'm a nut?
I know. You and I have talked about this a lot. And I would ask you, Juan, do you think that Al Sharpton actually represents the black community? Because I don't think that he does. And you and I have talked about this. You've written about this in your book enough. He represents a minority of the black community now. And I don't think he does them a disservice, as you point out so passionately. Instead of encouraging them to focus on positive messages like studying and finding a job and working hard and being a good dad or a good mom, he is empowering them to sit in their house and be angry at Bill O'Reilly.
Or
How
angry at America, angry at America, angry at history. Yeah, I mean, it does. What does it say
for
to the kid?
anyone?
It doesn't say that you can make it in America, you know. But he did the same thing, by the way. He did the same thing when Bill Cosby, a black man with a lot of credibility, said the very same thing. So it's not just O'Reilly. So Bill Cosby says the same thing. In that case, he says, oh, it's the black middle class looking down their nose out of shame at the black poor. They don't like the fact that white people see black poor people behaving in this dysfunctional way.
But Juan, do they represent the black community, though? Honestly, do they represent the views of the
I
black
think
community?
Sharpton plays a role because he calls attention when there's a problem. But no, I don't know who he... Remember, he didn't get any votes when he ran for president, when he ran for mayor. Let's look at Sharpton. Here's Sharpton.
50 years from the March on Washington, and there are serious issues that need attention on voting rights, on equal justice, on civil rights. But Mr. O'Reilly has the problems in the African-American community figured out. We have a long history in this country of some people exploiting differences between us for their own advantage. It's a cynical appeal to the worst instincts in our great country.
Hand him a mirror.
Well, I was going to say, who do you think? You know, I mean, this is what I'm talking about. You know, it's an industry, so it's a grievance industry, and I think it is very profitable for some people. But again, to come back to the help theme, David, is it helping Al Sharpton or is it helping the people who need the help?
Look, add the term profiteers to these guys because it's helping them. I've debated Michael Eric Dyson, and if you want to look at a political race huckster love child, it's what Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton created in Michael Eric Dyson. He doesn't have an ethnic issue he won't make about race. He's dishonest. He talks about his degrees. So who cares? Like Andrea asked the question for Sharpton, these guys don't represent the black community. We're not a monolithic community. This country's all communities under one. But they need to separate us. If they separate us into groups and amalgamate us for their own power and their own control, this is what Obama did. This is what Sharpton, Jackson, Dyson, insert name here. It's profiteering. Here's what they did. They had 100 rallies in 100 cities. They didn't have 100 community meetings between neighborhoods, between neighborhood watches, and educate them on how to interact with each other. Why? Because they don't give a CRAP about any solution because they need to keep the argument going. They're having the 64 argument. It's 2013. It doesn't benefit them, and they're irrelevant if they